Roger Goodell also floated around the possibility that Nashville is a city that is on his list to host the Super Bowl, and he thinks it's going to be ready. Next year, it's going to be in Inglewood, and then it was confirmed it's going to be in Atlanta after that. So by 2030, 2031, we're probably going to see the Super Bowl in Nashville, and I'll probably have enough money to go to that at that point. So that'd be a fun time.
That'd be sick.
Broadway
That'd be
will
so
be
sick.
bumping.
Yeah, halftime show, they have, like, Zach Brown Band or, like,
Probably Shabuzi, to be honest.
Shabuzi, Luke Combs. They could do, there's a number of people they could do. Post Malone even. Post Malone could probably do it. He'd be down.
Has he done the halftime show yet? I feel like I remember him
No.
doing it, or has he cameoed on the halftime show?
I don't even know if he cameoed, but he would be somebody that would fit the halftime if they want somebody who speaks English, which I know a lot of people were whining about.
Yeah, as long if it's Jay-Z still doing it, probably not though.
Well, I saw that they removed him after the halftime, so he won't be in charge of the halftime anymore.
Yeah, it's probably because he's. Imagine being in both the Diddy files and the Epstein files. Like, what kind of work are you putting in there? Like, that is some great networking.
Yeah, I would say so. Some other teams with cap space here. We have the Bengals at 54 million, Rams at 45 million, Steelers at 45, Niners at 42, Patriots at 41. And then from there, it just kind of winds down. Cardinals have 39, Colts have 35. And there's some maneuvering. Like, we're going to see some teams clear up some space. Like, this one doesn't show the Dolphins, who just freed up money with cutting Tyreek Hill. They just cut Bradley Chubb. And if they do it after June 1st, they're going to save $20 million cutting Bradley Chubb. And it doesn't show me with Tyreek Hill, but definitely freed up some cash there for the Dolphins. So Dolphins, it looks like they're just trying to retool, maybe tank a year, draft a quarterback next draft, move on from Tua most likely. So Dolphins have about $3 million now after the Tyreek Hill cutting. With Bradley Chubb, it's going to be around 23. So start to cut some people. Expect to have a pretty rough start to the season, but start building something with Jeff Hafley.
Yeah, and so if they cut Tua or trade him before June 1st, they would have a dead cap of 45.2 million in dead money, and then that would mean 11 million in cap savings. And then but if they trade him before, and then they could also try and find someone to pay his $54 million fully guaranteed for 2026. But if they just cut him after June 1st, they could save up to $11 million in cap. So if I'm the Dolphins, honestly, I would probably just cut Tua. I don't see him as a quarterback you're going to build with long term. I think Mike McDaniel's already got the best you're going to see out of Tua. So I would probably try and find a trade partner for him. I don't know how much other cap space. And then you look at a team like the Cardinals, you have Kyler Murray, who's getting paid top 5 money in the NFL. So that's probably someone they're going to look at moving. But at the end of the day, it's going to be who would want to take that contract.
Yeah, I don't really know who would take that contract. The Cardinals are really the only one where you could trade Kyler and Tua 1-for-1 and maybe with some pick swaps, maybe then. But you have the same problem. You just have 2 bad contracts. Other than that, like, the Browns can't afford them. Commanders don't want them. Vikings, maybe. I know Kyler has said that he wants to play for Minnesota if he's traded. So maybe it's the Vikings want to move on from 9 and take a chance on a quarterback. The thing is like, you didn't sign Sam Darnold. He just won the Super Bowl because of it. And because you didn't want to pay him, you kept 9. 9's been bad for you for the most part. And you're going to go in and install Kyler Murray, who you're going to get for $50 million a year instead of Sam Darnold, who you would have had for 35. Like, it's a costly mistake you made there, Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't know how much, like, I feel talent-wise, Kyler Murray is better than JJ McCarthy, but I do think JJ McCarthy does care more than Kyler, and he showed some signs of progressing. So if we can get him a run game full-time, draft a running back next year, have a solid offensive line to take some pressure off him, I do think JJ McCarthy can develop into a better quarterback. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Last year was his first kind of full season and you still banged up a little bit, but you'd still be bringing the same type of problem with Kyler Murray. So, yeah. And then any other team jump out for you as far as salary cap availability or lack thereof right now?
So for rough salary cap scenario, it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs have negative 55 million in cap space. So they're
Negative 50.
screwed. So that's a tough one. So that's where we see, like, for example, if they were to cut Chris Jones, well, Chris Jones isn't really a good cap relief here, but like, for example, some of the biggest savings they can do is if they cut Jawan Taylor, they'll save $20 million. They can cut Jalen Moore and save about $8 million. Mike Diana, $9 million. But for the most part, they're going to have to restructure. They're probably going to restructure Mahomes' deal. You can free up to $44 million if you restructure his contract. And if you restructure Chris Jones, that's another $22 million, pushing it down the line. But other than that, the Chiefs, they can't really do much this offseason with
What
their
is
salary
Travis
cap
Kelce
scenario.
making? Like, I'm
He's a
surprised
free
Travis
agent.
Kelce hasn't announced that he's retiring yet. And then he's going to be like negative in the cap right now. Are we going to see Travis Kelce walk away and go to the Rams to try and ring chase at this point? I
Yeah.
could see that. I know he wants to play with Mahomes full time, but I could see him saying, you know what? At this point, the Chiefs, I don't think they're going to compete anymore. Could do something similar to Rob Gronkowski. And maybe I want to play somewhere warm and in a dome for the last year of my career and try and ring chase with the Rams, have that rapport with Matthew Stafford, and then give them one extra weapon. Maybe he can give them some extra leadership or extra boost. So I could honestly see Travis Kelce walking and going to the Rams in his last year. And I don't think that's something that people are talking about. They just assume, like, oh, yeah, he's just going to stay with the Chiefs for his whole career. It's like, well, how many more hits does he really want to take in sub-Saharan temperatures?
Yeah. And he's going to be 37 this year, too. His contract, you'll probably pay him about $10 million. For Travis Kelce, like, you can either walk away now as arguably the best tight end in NFL history, if not like top 5, spend your entire career with the Chiefs, or ring chase somewhere else. I don't know if he's a guy that would want to ring chase at this point because he's already won 3 at this
Yeah.
point with the Chiefs. So, like, going out again, like, how would his legacy change if he has 3 or if he has 4? I just don't know if it's going to change his legacy at all because Gronk won 4. But other than that, like, there's no other Travis Kelce. He's just not the same player he was a couple of years ago. For me, the best case he can do is just I think he should just retire at this point. He turns 37 in October, and this past year he had the lowest receiving totals ever in his career, even playing a full 16 games. So
With
I
no
think it's time.
receivers really taking the targets away from him either.
Yeah, and he only had 60% of the snaps too. So, like, it's a rough sight. I would prefer he just walks away rather than being that guy that just keeps playing for the sake of playing. Like, longevity stats he already has over Gronk. There's really nothing he can do to elevate him to being the number 1 tight end of all time. You could argue he already is the number 1 of all time, but, like, I just wouldn't. I just would just retire gracefully instead of ruining your legacy in some capacity.
Yeah, unless the Chiefs have an incredible draft and hit on a couple picks, and they would need to hit on like 3 or 4 key pieces on offense because their defense was still good last year. I can't see the Chiefs suddenly snapping back and then rising to their top of the division and being really good again because I think the Chargers should be better next year if their entire offensive line, doesn't die. That would help, if Justin Herbert's not running for his life the entire game. Say what you will about him in the playoffs, but Burrow has had a lot of issues with his offensive line, and then the Raiders are coming. I think Clint Kubiak is going to really elevate Ashton Genty, especially with what he did with Kenneth Walker this year and the combination that he already has with Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers. And then he's going to be able to have the number 1 overall pick and hopefully get his quarterback. So I don't think the Raiders are going to be a team that's also going to be a slouch. And then what was the Raiders cap? Because they might trade Crosby. And there's a rumor that Crosby told Tom Brady that he wants out of the Raiders, and then Detroit and then also Dallas are two leading contenders for potentially trading for Max Crosby. I know those are
Yeah.
rumors swirling, but he's someone who always comes up in trade conversations, but it seemed like them deactivating him at the end of last year really upset him, and the fact that they haven't been able to compete. But he's also one of those guys that as soon as he leaves, the Raiders are suddenly going to be good, and I think he does like staying in Vegas a lot. So I do think a lot of that is just hearsay and the media trying to create narratives if we're playing devil's advocate. But what do you think overall on just the rumors about Max Crosby? Do you think some of it is just him being frustrated at the end of the year, but he'd actually like to stay in Vegas and give it one more shot?
I think he wants to win. I mean, he's been with the Raiders now for almost a decade at this point, and they've made it to one playoff appearance with Derek Carr. So, like, he wants to win. And, like, I don't know if the Lions are negative in cap space, so are the Cowboys. A team that he's also mentioned interest in is the Patriots, who have the draft capital and the salary cap to do so. I
Pick up
think
him and
they're
Jeffrey
paying
Simmons.
around like trading like a fourth and Christian Barmore for him. So you still have like a defensive player getting back of lesser capacity, of course. But the Raiders, they have a lot to build and they can get several picks for Max Crosby. And if they do the trade after June 1st, they'll make 30 million in cap space. So, like, that alone, I think, should be a good reason. And then if you also cut Geno Smith, you'll save money there as well, which is obviously the guy that's going to be out the door after what happened last year. So I think Max Crosby should go. And I would love to see him in Detroit. I'd love to see him in New England. Some other teams that might be able to afford him. If the Bengals want to actually build their defense, they could make the trade for him and afford him. I don't know how their draft picks necessarily look. Or maybe the Steelers want to build a unstoppable duo with him and TJ Watt. Those would be some fun destinations. But yet again, like, if I'm Max Crosby, I want to go to a team that just made the Super Bowl, maybe didn't have the same enough personnel there. I would go out and maybe make a trade to the Patriots.
Yeah, I think the Patriots would be a good trade, especially I think Robert Kraft does want to see this team win, especially breaking the franchise record. So I could see the Patriots. A lot of people said Detroit and Dallas, but you point out there's just not enough cap space there. And then you also mentioned teams with cap space, like Seattle also has the cap space to do it. So if he wants to go ring chase, like Seattle could also add even more passing there, especially if DeMarcus Lawrence, he's getting a little bit older at this point. So you replace an aging DeMarcus Lawrence with Max Crosby, who's going to be slowly coming out of his prime over the next few years.